a presentation to explain what they think they could do for us with an exit process. And it was just too good to turn down. So we ended up discussing with our investors and convincing them that it was a good time to do the exit, that the market was right, and that we had a good advisor that would lead the exit process for us to make sure we got a good deal.
Excellent. Yeah, this is really impressive to me to hear these stories. Raphael, if you could also share a little bit about, seems like you are expanding your business as you go, right? Looking at different sector or expanding the scale. How are you getting the funding, sorting out that funding issue?
Yeah, as I mentioned, it was very important that we are in a low capex side of retail, right? So like a Burger King restaurant in China, for example, used to be somewhere around close to like 3 million renminbi. And one of our fitness studios just cost just over 600,000-700,000. So you have a much faster payback. So that's why we didn't have to raise much. So initially we started with my own money and 2 other investors. One I met in business school, and the second one comes from undergrad times. He had to, at the time of the Shanghai lockdown that I mentioned, first I wanted to start, and second I received this call from this friend. He had just sold his business, and then he said, "What are you waiting for? Just start this. Take my money and do it, right?" That was already something that helped. And then last year, so we started that, and then last year was the first time we did an external fundraise for the first brand that we started, My Bar. And then it was individual investors, angel profile. I think it was touched on in other panels earlier, but I really feel that a lot of people got burned in the PE market. I think it was Ryan that brought it up in China. So I just sensed I had bigger ambitions to raise more money and grow faster. I was used at the Burger King to do 150, 200 stores per year. But turns out that it was just too costly to raise equity these days, and from institutionals, because they're either not deploying or they deploy with a set of conditions that I was just not willing to take. So they were just adapted and raised with people who understand the model. They have long-term aspirations, the patient capital, and then we can grow at a steady pace, focus on sustainability, making sure that the studios get profitable and ramp up faster. So that's been the approach.
That's great. I'd like to just touch a little bit upon the AI part, because now is the age of AI, and this is a chance to use your technology for it. I mean, you mentioned a few things that you've done with some of the clinics, and please share with us.
Yeah, no, I think it's very exciting to be in the golden age of AI, right? Especially, maybe not so much as being one of the, it's more as a recipient of it, So within our clinics, a couple of things that we are doing, seemingly small, but actually making quite a big difference. Firstly, kind of in terms of, we've piloted AI note-taking. So our clinicians don't usually would say 5 to 10 minutes per appointment, kind of typing out the patient notes, so on and so forth. But what now happens is that the notes are taken by AI. That saves you 5 to 10 minutes per patient, but in a day that lets you see 10% easily more patients. Another thing we do is with our digital marketing. AI now helps us to plan, draft, evaluate campaigns. We also started doing digital marketing services for other healthcare clinics as a way to do a bit of due diligence for potential targets that we want to acquire along the way. So not just internally I think Raphael and I are set up quite similarly in that we have all our head office functions centralized at our holding company. So like marketing, accounts, HR, everything sits on top. So AI helps us a lot with marketing as well. Finally, I think even we started moving towards we are working towards receptionless clinics, but for now, what we're doing is we're having AI agents responding to, for Singapore, it's always WhatsApp queries. So we have WhatsApp queries now being responded to round the clock without having to hire more receptionists. We've started trying to pilot kind of self-check-in and check-out systems to reduce, the kind of manpower needs. Because for us, staffing a clinic the more tricky part, surprisingly, is not hiring the clinician, is actually hiring the receptionist or the nurse. No one, at least in my country, seems to want to be doing that kind of jobs these days. So that's where we are moving towards, and it's been very fun and exciting.
Excellent. Kieran, you mentioned something about AI earlier. We'd love to hear how you apply that.
So I think us, like most software businesses, I think the starting point was thinking about how we use AI internally in terms of our operations. So within the software design and development, things like code generation, refactoring, automating the documentation, the user stories, automating testing, and even automation of the architecture, I think was kind of the starting point. We have all our kind of training manuals and kind of knowledge base in one place, and so the support team have now started using AI to be able to quickly get to answer questions, and that's really ramped up the skills of the support team. And so that's kind of the internal focus. I mean, it's touched on most teams, but I think support and R&D have been the biggest ones. We've now started bringing that to our product, so our customers can start to feel that as well. So for us, a lot of that is around the fleet management side of the business, so optimizing where vehicles should be at which point in time. So we've got customers that have over 60,000 vehicles in a single country, and managing where vehicles are, what the right time is to sell those vehicles, predictive maintenance has been a huge part of it. But then also using AI for pricing models as well, to think about how they can be more competitive has been the second most part. So I think over the next year and years to come, it's going to be a huge part of what we do in terms of product development and how we use AI for our customers to be more efficient with their operations.
That's awesome. I just have a very curious question. Like, why did you make the decision to move on the investment side? Will you continue to do search or run a company, or are you making that shift?
So I'm still running the business today. So we exited to a private equity in July, but both my partner Gonzalo and I are still running the business, and I've signed up to a business plan with private equity. At the same time, starting to invest. For me, the search fund community is super interesting and small community. That for me, all the experience that I learned throughout that journey, kind of wanting to give back, especially to the INSEAD side of things, that has been kind of where my formation started. So starting to invest more, took a first board seat, and just excited to continue that journey. And for me, the operation side will continue, but at some point I think I'll transition into more of an investor, fully focused on investing.
Great. I'm gonna just ask one more question, and then I think we'll open up for questions. I think it's a lot of opportunity for you guys to ask, the searchers here. My question is gonna be around the challenges, right? What I'm sure everything is not smooth and easy as it sounds like. So, what are the biggest challenges that you faced?
I think capital is one of them. I think the debt and leverage is something that is very different in China. Even though the interest rates are low, the covenants or the conditions are quite fierce to entrepreneurs, at least to my knowledge. There's still a lot of concepts of the personal liability, and you need to guarantee your house sometimes to get a loan if you don't have enough cash flow. I'm talking about businesses. Burger King China is a different story with 1,500 stores, but so it's not very friendly, and that's always a pain point. The second is to have discipline in how we grow, because China is big, and we went outside of Shanghai last year for the first time, and then we went to Beijing and then out to Hangzhou, and it adds complexity. So we've been having these discussions of we need to go into a few cities, but not too much, and then what's the balance, because you can over penetrate a certain city if you just stay there, and there's a little bit of cannibalization. But you can complicate the operations too much if you spread yourself too thin. And the third and last one is just people. There's a huge amount of talented people in China, and the work ethic is amazing. But it's still a very competitive market. So we are in service retail and making sure that we have an employer branding that is very strong, and that people work for us for the right reasons, not just because we pay them above market. It's the opposite. I always tell the HR we need to hire and recruit and keep them, not because we're paying above market, we're paying below or the same or below ideally,
More skin in the game, right?
but they have skin in the game or they love the culture, especially in retail, and they want to stick around.
Yeah, definitely people. I think that's what I spend, to be honest, a lot of my kind of mind space thinking about. So now we are about maybe entire organization, 120 to 130 people, and we are in healthcare services. So what the bread and butter of what we do is around people. So I think we spend a lot of time, all the softer things that I used to think was a bit fluffy are actually what occupies my entire day, thinking about mission, vision, culture, values, and once you can't get, like, we have 16 locations after all, just kind of making sure that that is properly communicated throughout the organization. Of course, compensation helps, but that can't be the only thing why people want to stick with you for the long term.
Yeah.
So in that sense, because we are now actively looking to buy another kind of related chain of clinics, we've started searching, and we are trying to be a bit more thoughtful about how we structure our acquisitions. Previously we did 100%, but maybe going forward, we've started looking into ESOPs for our existing clinicians that we want to keep. Also, maybe taking majority, but not necessarily 100% going forward. I think people definitely has to be the main one. The second challenge, I wouldn't really call it a challenge per se, because I think I've done well mitigating it by having good partners, but just kind of setting the pace of what you want to do, especially for us, because after we decided to take a long hold view of this, so kind of earlier on we even went as far as to buy out some investors, and you just wanted to have like the bulk of the equity and kind of setting the pace for what we want to do. So you, unlike previously in corporate roles, especially, I think a lot of people who come out and do this are quite type A personalities. You want to always like be the top performer, or you want to chase certain goals. You want to have a boss breathing down your back and like, oh, okay, I want to outperform my peers. But when you have to chart your own goals, you kind of have to be a lot more mindful about that. You can be as lazy or as hardworking as you want. And just so I was chatting earlier with Alex, asking him like, what your ambitions are, because I dictate my own ambitions, which is great because I find it particularly fulfilling. But coming to seminars like these just kind of help you reset and reframe what you want to do. So yeah.
Wonderful, great. No, and Karen, would you share something? It sounds like a very smooth run. You already got offers early on in a couple of years. What were some of the biggest difficulties you encountered?
I mean, it definitely wasn't smooth. It might sound that way. We've got many horror stories. I think one of them, just to follow the people trend, is around dealing with vendors. So, we acquired 2 companies, and the process was very different with the 2, and it was really down to the vendor that we were acquiring from. So, the first one ended up being quite problematic. We had, as I mentioned, because of COVID, we had quite a sizable earnout. We had many disagreements in terms of how that would then play out, and we ended up having to renegotiate the deal only 6 months after closing the deal. So that was a huge distraction, massive headache. I think we learned very quickly the massive benefits you can have from having a good relationship with the vendor, a smooth transition and to succession, which is what we ended up having with the second acquisition. So I say, yeah, people for sure, one with the vendors, but then 2, for us running a business that today we have about 150 people, more than half of which are in India. It was really important for us to build a solid mid-management team in those locations where we maybe spend less time. And still today, one of our biggest challenges is managing, trying to harmonize the culture across 3 different offices. It's very, very difficult, right? And we didn't have experience running a team in India. And so being able to have, key people that can implement that culture and kind of represent us and kind of what we want to bring to the company in those different areas and in the different teams in terms of leadership was key and the biggest challenges, I'd say. The second is maybe to touch on Raphael's point on kind of being disciplined and focusing on how we want to grow, because I think we had so many ideas and so many options in terms of inorganic, but even from the organic front, do we continue to expand in new countries? Do we double down in some of those that we already are? Do we try to pivot into different industries where we're not so prevalent, like leasing, like limo drive and different types of rental services. And so for us, we very quickly realized we had to be very focused and not be pulled in too many directions, and just kind of go with the decision and focus on that, just to have clarity amongst the team and for us to be able to, to be very clear on what we wanted to build.
This is excellent. I think it's a nice way to summarize this discussion, and we'll open it up. I think to me, like what Raphael done, bring his, people that you used to work with and you trust.
That each of you have partners in your ventures, and versus most of the searchers this morning who were solo searchers. So I'm curious how critical you think your partners were, and whether you have a view on going into it only with a partner, and maybe one or two key insights of choosing the right partner and what you need to be aligned on.
Yeah, I can go first. I think quite early on when I thought about moving back to Singapore and doing the whole ETA,